Right, the January transfer window is now officially in full swing for Chelsea Football Club with both come-ins and go-ins. And although I didn't get time to touch on all of the relevant stories yesterday when I was in the studio with Josh, I want to do so today. And there is only one place to start. I know you lot want my opinion on it. It's Garnacho to Chelsea. Now, it is being reported that we are weighing up the option of going in for the young Argentinian, and the price tag would probably be somewhere around the 55 million mark, which at a glance doesn't necessarily seem something that a lot of Chelsea fans are desperate for us to do. Obviously, we do feel like profile-wise, it's maybe not a position that is at the top of our priorities right now. At the same time as that, I initially didn't think that Jadon Sancho would be a player that would be at the top of our priorities, and look how that one has turned out. And I do think that there is sort of concrete interest there. A lot of you guys would have seen the video that circulated of Garnacho's agent at Stamford Bridge for the last match, and that obviously made a lot of the media and a lot of people on social media feel like this move could be edging closer. It's also apparently a destination that Garnacho would favour as opposed to moving abroad. And remember, when these reports get leaked, right, there's multiple layers to what's actually happening. And the first is that the media are exaggerating the realism of the interest or the possibility of these deals actually happening because they know that they're going to get clicks. But the second is that there are other significant movements going on behind the scenes, possibly involving players that are in that position that may well be silently in the middle of doing moves, possibly news involving players that are in that position or around that position on the field that we know are about to serve a ban, and therefore, instead of just saying, no, we don't need Garnacho, we're all right there, let's actually delve into it, and let's weigh up the pros and the cons. And I want to start with the pros, with a move for Garnacho. Now, he has been a player that has looked decent in attack for Man United over the last few seasons, where, to be honest, no one's really looked great, have they? They had a season where Rashford looked pretty good, but that was a couple of seasons ago now. And you could go as far to say, that he's looked better in attack for Man United than Jadon Sancho did before he went out on loan to Borussia Dortmund and obviously looked quite good, and then eventually coming to us where he's really, really flourishing. He's only on 50 grand a week, Garnacho, at Man United. So you would imagine that even with paying a transfer fee and upping the wages, as everyone does when they move, it's not going to be inflated that much that he wouldn't fit in with our wage bill. And obviously, as I say, there's always, to quote James Alcott, the ripple effect. There's always that ripple effect of a player may or may not be about to have a contract torn up. You don't know. A player may or may not be on the move, and therefore those wages might come off of our bill. And let's be honest when I speak about that, right? Mudryk's probably getting a ban. I have no inside information on that, but what I do know through years and years of being a fan of combat sports, where athletes regularly test positive for doping, for performance enhancers, for drugs including meldonium, which is what apparently Mudryk's tested positive for. The B sample, which is what we're waiting on at the minute, right, to compare it to the A sample, never ever comes back any different to the A sample. The B sample will always be the same as the A sample. I am a fighter who is drug tested myself. What you do is you pee into a cup. No one else is allowed to touch it. You then pour that pee into sample tube A and into sample tube B. So there's no chance really that the B sample is going to come back any different. And then you would imagine that Mykhailo Mudryk could even have a scenario where his contract is torn up and Chelsea have him off the wage books and whatnot. Obviously take a hit on the transfer fee, but yeah, there you go. If that does happen, we're one left winger down, and that is where Garnacho primarily has played throughout his career. And in doing so, right, despite Man United's form, and despite him sort of being a little bit out of favour under Ruben Amorim. Let's be honest, Garnacho is a good player. He's quick, he's a good dribbler of the ball, he's a decent finisher. He can score with both feet, can't he? Like, he can score with both feet, he can cross with both feet. He's actually been quoted as saying that he hasn't got a preferred foot. He doesn't mind it on the right or the left. And although I remember him scoring the acrobatic against Everton, that was definitely a right-footed finish. I can remember him scoring at the bridge with his left foot. Do you remember when we gave the ball away? He scored at the bridge with his left foot. Pretty sure he scored at Wembley against Man City with his left as well. So either way, what I'm saying is, yeah, he is good with both feet. And if Mudryk does get banned and you see Garnacho as an out-and-out winger, then obviously the only other out-and-out winger we've got in that position is Jadon Sancho, as well as Tyreek George, who's still young, still green, coming through the academy and whatnot. We don't even know. May well go out on a loan. But Garnacho, despite me just saying there, you may see him as a left winger, he can show that versatility. He can play across the front line, and he has been able to contribute goals and assists when he's played right wing, when he's even played centre attacking midfield for Man United. So there you go. And by the way, like, I mentioned Mudryk there, and this is the last time I'll touch on it. Even if it was a case, imagine it was a swap deal, there was no ban on the table. Would you swap Mudryk for Garnacho? You probably would. You probably would. I don't know. Like, obviously, Mudryk's a little bit older. Ceiling-wise, you can talk about it and whatnot. But at this moment in time, Garnacho has delivered way more in the Premier League than Mykhailo Mudryk has. And yeah, he's got maybe a season on him, but even if you just go from when Mykhailo Mudryk came to Chelsea in that January, he has delivered more. And also, always worth looking into, with any player that we are about to sign, he's got a close to perfect injury record. Hasn't spent any time really unavailable during his career so far through injury. There's the pros. Let's move on to the cons. Despite the fact that we could get him for around 50 mil, that's still not cheap, is it? And especially not if you believe that he'll be a backup to Jadon Sancho. What I would say is we've played 39 matches already this season, and we're only halfway through, yeah? So we're going to play probably at least 60, I would say. If we get far, we could play as many as 70, 75, Club World Cup and that as well. So we are going to need, obviously, players, and we're going to need that depth. And I know you're probably screaming at the computer or whatever, you're watching it on tablet, iPhone at the minute, saying, hold on, we got loads of depth. The likes of João Felix and Nkunku and a lot of these boys are going to be on the move, in my opinion. But the most thing, or most obvious thing, is I don't want to disrupt the progress to Jadon Sancho, because I genuinely do think that week in, week out, when I see him, he performs, and I'm really, really happy with him. And we also have to remember that we have a Brazilian wonder kid in Estavio coming in next season. And obviously, if he is what we believe he is going to be, then not only will he be coming in, he'll be coming in and he may well be demanding first-team football. And although he's not necessarily an out-and-out left winger, it is another attacking player. It is another player that's going to be having to be accommodated for. I can't even get my words out there, but we're going to have to accommodate for him. And, you know, it's going to give us even more depth across that front line, which could be positive, could make people think more about, you've got someone hot on your tails right now, which, let's say, for example, Jadon Sancho at this moment in time, although we sometimes start Pedro Neto over there, he maybe not necessarily has that, but he's still performing in a good way. The most important thing for me here, when it comes to the cons of signing Garnacho, is that I just feel that the money could and should be spent in better areas. I don't think that the area of the field for those sitting inside Stamford Bridge week in, week out, that we're looking at and saying that needs addressing, is the left wing. I really don't feel like that is. I feel like we're a lot more likely to say the goalkeeper, to say the centre-backs, and some people to even say a number 9. So, yeah. Will a deal happen for Garnacho? Possibly. Maybe if it does, it will rumble on. It will be later on down the line. What I do know is that Man United need to sell probably at least one of Garnacho, Rashford, Kobe Mainoo. I think that, Ruben Amorim's going to want to hold on to Kobe Mainoo, but at the same time, he needs a rebuild, because the squad is not in his mould, is it, at all? And they've brought him in, and if Ratcliffe and whatnot are to be believed, they want to see this as a project and saying the rattles on for longer, and therefore you're going to have to rebuild him. Yeah, I don't know. I'd keep an eye on it, but for me, I like the signings of, let's say, for example, recalling Trevor Chalobah, where you know exactly what you're getting. And what I'm saying is, with Garnacho, I don't know what I'm getting. Speaking of what we're getting, it moves us on to the next area of the field that is definitely a concern, and that is goalkeeper. Now, most Chelsea fans will say that a new goalkeeper signing might not even necessarily be something that we need to do because we've got so many on our books, and not only that, we haven't given Jorgensen a fair run in the league, starting against high-level opposition to be able to prove himself and prove that, one, he's just as good as Robert Sanchez, if not better, and two, he's not making mistakes match in, match out, and you'll only get that when you get a run in the team, as Robert Sanchez was afforded to have. But Chelsea are now being linked with apparently 40 million rated Parma and Japanese international, I hope I am not butchering the name, Zion Suzuki, right? He's 6'3", 21-year-old. He started every game for Parma this season. He's top 4 in Serie A for saves made, but he is bottom 3 or top 3 for goals conceded because that Parma team is struggling this season. Now, you might have seen I pulled a bit of an expression when I said 40 million. The thing is, Manchester United were actually linked with him before they signed Onana, and they were linked with him for around 5 million. So, although he started pretty much every game available to him so far this season, I'm not sure. Has he done enough for me to warrant saying that, yeah, although, you know, he's pulled off a lot of saves and whatnot, that he's rocketed up 45 million in value. Look, I don't watch much of Serie A. Well, scrap that. I don't watch any of Serie A, to be honest, do I? The only time I watch it or watch any Italian teams is when they're playing in European competitions. So I've literally never seen him play. All I've done is watch YouTube highlights of this guy, and everyone looks good on YouTube highlights. But what you do see on the YouTube highlights is a lot of shot stopping. There's loads of shot stopping from him and not much playing out from the back. So the first place that my mind goes to is, hold on, if you just want a shot stopper that doesn't make that many mistakes, are we not thinking about a guy we already have on our books, Georgi Petrovic, because we've got him. He's a great shot stopper. Robert Sanchez is actually a good shot stopper, but makes a lot of mistakes. Jorgensen, until we give him a run in the team, we don't know. So again, it leads me to the fact that I feel that this is a real gamble. And if we're going to gamble anywhere, do we want to gamble on a goalkeeper when we could make a gamble where we don't have to spend money in terms of gambling by giving Jorgensen a run in the team? That's what I'm saying. So, I don't know. You lot let me know if you'd agree with that or not. One man who is now apparently on the move, he's had the here we go from Fabrizio Romano, and that is Renato Veiga. Now, I noted a while back, didn't I, that I had heard that he'd fallen out of favour with Enzo Maresca. And obviously at the time, I think I had a few people doubting me and whatnot, but it kind of looks like that has happened. And it's a hard one because, albeit only in cup competition, sorry, my light's flickering there, albeit only in cup competition against lower level opposition, when you had seen Renato Veiga play, I thought he'd look good. I actually genuinely thought he'd look good. Obviously, we saw him against Manchester City on the opening day. He came on as a sub and actually looked good in his little cameo there. But we've mostly seen him used in the Conference League and whatnot. And now, even in the cup competition games, you're not seeing as much of him. And it makes me think, well, will we reading false data on him a little bit? And actually, I don't think we were. I think he is a good player. I think that it's just hard because at the minute we haven't really worked out where he's going to play. But the reports are that he'll be joining Juventus on a loan deal until June, and they will be paying around £4 million for his services on loan until the end of the season. And I've got to be honest, right? Chelsea fans might get annoyed at me for saying this because I know a lot of you guys don't like the way that the club do business. I completely understand it. It takes away a little bit of the almost nostalgic times we had when we were younger with football, where we were able to actually get excited for signings and whatnot. But when you look at it from a sort of profit margin, we spent just under 12 million on him. We're getting 4 million for 5 months out on loan. If he goes there and he does the business on loan, then he's definitely going to be worth more than 12 million, what we paid for him. We might end up with a player on our hands who is either ready to go into the team and now we want to use him, or if he's not ready, at least he's elevated his value and he's now worth 30 million, so we've made a nice 20 something million profit on him or something like that. So I don't know. What we do need to accept though is, although he wasn't getting many minutes at Stamford Bridge, and when he did get minutes, he was sometimes playing as a defensive midfielder, sometimes playing as a left back, sometimes playing as a centre back. If he goes, we are one defender down if we class him as a defender. So when we speak about 50 mil for Garnacho or 40 mil for Suzuki, we really need to be prioritising that money towards the defence, in my opinion, because we've got Fofana out all season. We've got Badiashile out for most of the season. Disasi being linked with moves away, hardly getting any minutes, sometimes coming off the bench. We're unsure whether Colwell will be back this weekend or will he be back in a month or 2 months' time, It's obviously Joshua Changpong's debut season. I'm happy he's getting minutes, but it's a lot to put on the line. And with Reece James, I'm loving having him back. But we know that his injury record is pretty appalling, not, any fault of his own. And therefore, the first sort of thing that I'm looking at is if we're going to spend any money anywhere on the field, then we should be looking at defence. Now, despite injuries really starting to take their toll on our midfield, I'm not actually as concerned about spending money on the midfield. My thing is we need to recall some of the loans, if not both of the loans, but definitely one of the loans. And now it looks like Ugachukwu might actually start to get a run in that Southampton team. So if it was an Andre Santos to Nottingham Forest scenario, then I'd be like, look, Andre Santos is playing brilliant at Strasbourg. He's highly touted. There's lots of big clubs in Europe that are after him, including Bayern Munich, maybe Barcelona, who knows. But he is doing the business. He's the bollocks, and let's let him, marinate a little bit more over there, and let's bring Ugachukwu back, because he's always looked half decent when he's played for Chelsea, and he's not getting the minutes at Southampton. But now he's starting to get in there a little bit, and from the Southampton fans I've heard from, they quite like him. So I'm thinking we just need to bring Andre Santos back to Stamford Bridge. And you might say, oh, well, he might not get the minutes, but look, Lavia's injury problems have been very consistent, haven't they, since he's come to the club? And although he's been unreal when he's played, I'm not putting my last pound on the possibility that when he comes back from his latest injury, he's going to be back, he's going to stay in the team, and therefore you're left with Caicedo and Enzo and Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, who I feel sorry for. He should have probably stayed with Leicester, do you know what I mean? Or maybe gone to a Spurs or somewhere like that. I don't think he's up to that quality. I hope he proves me wrong this weekend if he starts against Manchester City. But he's not a bad player, but he's not as good as an Andre Santos even, in my opinion. I don't believe he is, right? So if you're looking at Enzo and Caicedo, I get they get help from Cucurella and whatnot, but at the same time, you're asking them to play full 90s week in, week out. What if one of them gets injured? What if Caicedo gets injured, You've got to think about these things. Strategy, what is our backup there? And our backup there should be Andre Santos. And, okay, he might not start every match, but we're in cup competitions. He's going to start the matches in the Conference League. He's going to start the matches in the FA Cup. And no doubt that our team is not going to have this drop-off that we've been seeing in second halves, albeit we got better in the second half against Wolves, but in the previous games, no doubt if we can inject an Andre Santos and some of these players off the bench, then we're not going to have that drop-off in the second half. So I think he'd do wonders. As of yet, no movement on him or Ugachukwu being recalled, but there are rumours of signing Douglas Luiz, who's only just joined Juventus, really, and I've spoke about this already. I'd have him on a 6-month loan. I'd have him on a loan deal with Juve, and the Veiga deal makes me kind of feel like maybe this is something that could possibly happen, but we're also hearing that they don't want to loan him and they want us to pay a fee for him, and he's a good player. He smashed it for Villa. He was very, very good for Villa. One of their best players. I'm surprised they let him go. But he hasn't played that well this season. He has had injuries, which is key we need to speak about. He's only started 3 games for Juventus this season. Some of that comes down to being out of favour, but some of that comes down to the fact that he hasn't played that well and he's been injured a lot of the time. So when we've got one of the hottest prospects in Europe on our hands in Andre Santos, it's a no-brainer. It's like what I was going on about for months with Trevor Chalobah. Just bring him back. Right, let's finish off this transfer episode moving up top. And there are 2 names. That's 4. just them two that I want to talk about. And the first one, no surprise, it's Liam Delap. Apparently Chelsea and Spurs are both interested in the Ipswich forward. Spurs need a bit of reinforcement now that Solanke's picked up an injury, but at the same time as that, by Spurs standards, they spent big on Solanke. And Daniel Levy is tight as arseholes, mate. So he is not spending big on a number 9 again, in my opinion, which means that Chelsea would be in the driving seat. And you would imagine former academy player coming back and having the likes of Romeo Lavia and Cole Palmer, who he'd have played with. Not sure he'd have played with Tosin or Sancho or whatever, but, you know, it's a nice connection there. And the Joe Shields connection's always something. You'd imagine he'd love a move to Chelsea Football Club. But what would Liam Delap cost is the key question here, because apparently it's going to be 50 million or more. Wages shouldn't be a problem, but apparently 50 million or more. And Liam Delap is a class player, in my opinion. He's shown that he's been able to jump up from the Championship to the Premier League and be able to do it in the Premier League. And you know what? If anything, do it better in the Premier League than he was. Where was he? He was at Hull, wasn't he? Didn't even do that amazing at Hull in comparison to how he's been in the Premier League for a struggling Ipswich side. But playing for Ipswich and playing for Chelsea are very, very different things. And you could look at it one way and say, yeah, but when you play for Chelsea, you're going to have better service, better players around you, more opportunities to score those goals, and a better quality of play to look good in. But at the same time, the weight of expectation will be so much more at Chelsea than it is at Ipswich. And also, I've got to bring this in here, it might be controversial. 21 games for Ipswich this season, 10 goal involvements. He's bagged 8 goals, right? If Mark Gue had have played 21 games for Ipswich this season, are you ruling out the possibility that he could have bagged 8 goals in those 21 games? Are you ruling it out? Because I'm not. But what do I know? What I do know is that he's a former Man City Academy player, and he was prolific in that Man City Academy. And if Joe Shields and the recruitment team are very much in for him and they have their sights set on him, then I could see Chelsea making a move. I could. But as for Ipswich, they're not going to want to lose him, because 50 million, I don't know how much it results in, you know, getting relegated and if you don't come back up and whatnot. But the significance of losing Liam Delap could be the significance of losing your place in the Premier League, and that comes with a lot of financial implications. I know you've got parachute payments and whatnot, but they're not going to want to lose him, is what I'm saying. And look at, you know, the way that, for example, Kieran McKenna was very, very stubborn and stuck to his guns in terms of, like, Man United wanted to talk to him in the summer about taking over, and he was committed to the cause of Ipswich. That makes me feel like Kieran McKenna is a man who will obviously have a lot of faith from the board on his side. So if Kieran McKenna says no, don't sell him, I don't think they'll sell him, to be honest. The only thing you could say is maybe if Mark Gue was to go in the other direction on a loan until the end of the season, we pay some money, loan Mark Gue, cover the wages, that's all right. You know what I mean? Give him Gue to the end of the season and then they can reinforce. But I don't know. If I'm honest, I don't actually think it happens. I don't think it happens. Which moves us on to the last rumour. And fuck me, how many times have we heard this link? It's Duslan, however you pronounce it. It's Vlahovic. It's Vlahovic to Chelsea. He gets linked with us every season. And I'm not going to deny there's a decent player in there, right? I don't think he's pushed on to the heights that I thought he would. He's about to turn 25, I think. Earlier on in his career, I thought that he might be, you know, up there with Haaland and whatnot, but he hasn't pushed on to those heights, but he has been very decent. He started 16 games for Juve this season, 8 goals and an assist. Been good in the Champions League, by the way. 5 goal involvements in 5 starts. And even last season, he managed 21 goals and assists in 18 games for Juventus. So the stats at all aren't bad. Not only that, turning 25, he's got just a year left on his Juve deal, which means we could probably get him cheaper than the 65 odd million that they paid for him. But the problem's the wages, because he's on 200 grand a week. And when you move from Serie A to the Premier League, you're not thinking, oh, I'll take a pay cut. You're thinking, more money, TV deals, revenue, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to have more money. And we're not going to break our wage structure for someone, you know, if we weren't willing to do it for Osman, I don't think we're going to be willing him to do it for Vlahovic at all. So I think that straight away, that kind of makes you think, don't know about that one. Would it spell the end for Nicholas Jackson if he was to come in? I don't think it would. I've banged on time in, time out about the fact that I think that we could bring a number 9 in and they could still play alongside Nicholas Jackson. But if you're comparing him to Nicholas Jackson, and I've actually done this over this season and the last season combined, they've both scored 23 goals in around the same amount of minutes on the pitch. And then you look at some other key metrics, and this might surprise you, right? Nicholas Jackson has outperformed Vlahovic in non-penalty goals per 90, non-penalty expected goals per 90, pass completion per 90, assists per 90, and that's a pass completion percentage, by the way, assists per 90, shot creating actions per 90, and successful take-ons. And by the way, with successful take-ons and shot creating actions, he's not, slightly outperforming him, he's exceptionally outperforming him. So again, with the wages and the fact that he's not going to want to go lower, I don't know. Despite the fact that the media like to get on Nicholas Jackson's back, I would say that statistically, he's outperforming him in all those metrics. Is he an upgrade on what we've got in Nicholas Jackson? Stylistically, he's different. He's a different profile, and I completely understand that. But I don't know. He offers us another dimension, but at the same time, so does Liam Delap. So who would you guys go for? Vlahovic or Delap? Or would you not go for either? And I've touched on comings and goings, but until I hear anything concrete about a potential move for João Felix or Christopher Nkunku, I won't do that. I'll do that in a separate video because I've banged on a little bit here. But either way, they are the main stories that I'm hearing coming out of Stamford Bridge today, and they are the ones that I'm hearing might have a little bit more, a little bit more weight to them is what I'm trying to say. So who do you want to see brought in? Who do you want to see moved on? And most importantly, tell me what takes I've been wrong on in this video. Very, very interested to hear what you guys have to say. Me and Josh dropped our Man City preview yesterday, so make sure you watch that before the Man City game. Obviously, if we hear any massive injury news, team news, people getting ruled out, I might even put out another team sheet tomorrow, but for the time being, that one that's in the video yesterday is what I'm going to stick with. Guys, please subscribe to Joey and Josh. It's linked in the description. Like the video, smash the subscribe button if you're not already, all the good stuff. I will see you all in the next one.